Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Campus Care Ed Talks. Ed Talks is a platform where educators and leaders come on board and express their viewpoints related to education and society. Our topic for the day is how does the blended learning approach affect student performance? And to express her viewpoints on the same, we have with us Dr. Sharbari Banerjee, ma'am, Principal of Astor Public School, Noida Extension. A very warm welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here on this on the board with us.
Thank you once again. It's a
So, ma'am,
pleasure.
thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, starting off with a blended learning approach. So, what exactly is the blended learning approach that we are talking of, and how is it, different to the approach that we are using today, ma'am?
See, to some extent, we all got used to the blended learning approach during the pandemic, during COVID. So, blended learning approach basically is on one hand, we teach the children online, and on the other hand, we ask them to come to school and then we discuss whatever we have taught them online. Now, how do we go about it? It's a very simple thing. Different people have got different opinions with respect to this. But what I feel that earlier what we were following was VARK, VARK. That means visual, audio, whatever the children are listening to, whatever we are teaching in the classroom, read and write, and of course kinesthetics. That means experiential learning we were providing to them. But adding on to this blended learning approach, what we are telling them is we are adding to this the logical learning, and then we are adding the social interaction which they're having between each other, and of course self study. Because when we are teaching them in the classroom, children are not too much into self study. They are waiting for us to teach them, to explain to them. They understand, then they go back and they read. But now what is happening is, with the help of the blended learning, they first learn online, they learn it on their own, they are listening and learning on their own. So they are preparing it themselves, and then they're coming back to the class for further discussions, etc., and other kinesthetics. you know of course, multiple modalities are in use, wherein the
The
children
children
are engaged, they learn, they retain. That helps them to retain, because we are engaging
engaging
them
them
by
by
various
various
means.
means.
So,
So,
and
and
then
then
when
when
they
we
are
are
discussing, and finally the video conferencing, etc., is going on through the social media resources or other resources, whatever could be made available to them, they are able to grasp these things even better than the mode that we are using right now, right? Because now it is, of course, one to one teaching is very much important, but then in blended learning we are mixing both. So we are giving them this also, as well as the one to one human touch which is also required for the children, right? Then of course the pace of learning, it can be controlled. If a child is unable to understand, the blended approach could be given to them once again. So online we'll tell them once again, we teach them once again, they go through various other means through which they are able to understand the topic beyond what we want to tell them, and then come back, and then we give them a platform wherein they are able to discuss with us, ask their problems, sort it out there in the classroom, and then move ahead. And of course it is very diverse, because there are plenty of platforms which are there for this process. So I feel it is, by every mean, it is far better than what we are doing now, and of course very much different.
absolutely, ma'am. Very well explained what blended learning process is. Moving forward, ma'am, how does this blended learning process, how does it benefits? What is the advantages of it to the student learning process, ma'am?
See, what happens first thing is that it gives a very safe learning environment. See, what from our experiences, what we have learned right now is, during the pandemic everything was so sudden. Okay, suddenly something came up, there was a problem, there was an issue, and what we as educators felt that how do we reach out to our children, isn't it? And what we needed was a very safe learning platform through which we could reach out to our children and give them the correct information. So I feel the blended learning process, when we are giving them something online, it is a very, very safe learning environment that we are able to cope up with all kinds of situations. COVID is just an example. We had this pollution holidays which took place in Delhi NCR because of the tremendous pollution, atmospheric pollution which had taken place. So immediately the government announced that the schools need to be closed, but we are running at a particular pace. We are going on at a particular pace, and suddenly a holiday for 7 to 8 days becomes a problem because teachers will be unable to cope up with what was being done in the classroom. So here again, these different untoward situations which appear, these could be coped up with the help of the blended learning. Very, very importantly, a very safe learning environment where we could reach out to the children with the help of this. Then of course it is very extremely comfortable for the children. Why? Because in an open classroom, sometimes what happens, children are not very free in the classroom. They feel, if you ask them a question, there may be a group of some 10 to 15 children who happily answer, but another group of children who are not very well versed, so they would not feel like answering in the classroom. They don't have the confidence to answer in the classroom. Whereas when on the online, through the blended approach, when we are reaching out to them, they feel that one to one connection because they can see you on the screen. They cannot see the rest of the children. So when they see you, for instance, right now I'm able to see you, you're talking to me, I'm talking to you. So similarly, when the children see their teacher approaching them, they come out with their problems, with their issues, and it's a very, very big benefit which we feel. We could feel it during the COVID times. Children were reaching out very well. Of course, human touch is necessary. I never deny that. But again, every child doesn't get the human touch all the time. Sometimes they shy away from that also. They don't want that much of attention. So this is for those children who want attention as well as don't. So it's a very oxymoron, but still that is how it is. Okay. Then discussions, and we can give them hands-on experiences. How? Because when they are on the online platform, they learn and then they come back to the classroom. So a certain amount of work is given to them, which now they sort it out at their own level, at the solo level. Alone at home, they're doing it. They're studying one to one themselves, and they come back to the classroom, and then they're sorting out their problems. So it becomes it removes the practice theory, and they are able to do move ahead with the help of the solo learning, right? Then of course, access to internet. More and more study material is available online. Of course, children should know which is right and which is wrong, but they have, when once they get used to this practice, they are opened up to this whole they are able to explore more, and they have more and more material. So they are not restricted to their course books. We are providing them with a simple course book in the classroom, which we are covering in the form of a curriculum or a syllabus. We are maybe combining it with other subjects or whatever we are doing. But when they are having access to the internet, they are able to explore more, and they can do it independently. So that becomes a very, very big advantage, especially for children who are research oriented, want to know more curious. So they are able to solve their curiosity that way. Of course, efficient use of the instruction time. Instructor, whoever the teacher is, the teacher, while teaching in the classroom, is teaching one to one, going back, doing the correction, and then coming back. But the online mode or the blended mode helps the teacher to finish the part of the correction apart from what is physical correction. So when it becomes very helpful for these teachers to maintain other data also, of the children. So the teachers have more time to give to the children when it comes to one-to-one interaction in the classroom, because that is also part of the blended learning, a flipped classroom. So they learn online, and they come back, and they are able to interact with the teachers, because now the teachers are having more and more time, because they are able to manage everything on the system itself. Okay, so they are excuse me, so they are able to interact more and more with the children. More of their problems are of course sorted and solved. Multiple engagements and more exposure to the multiple courses that are available online. All these things can be done. For instance, if a child of grade 9 and 10 would like to appear for NTSC examinations, but in the classroom a teacher is teaching the syllabus itself. But online, what happens when the child goes on blended learning, the child is able to give more and more time to both. So maintain a balance between the regular courses or classes which are going on, as well the extra amount of study which the child is doing, maybe for the NTSC examinations, or for any other competitive or any other level of examination. I think plenty of benefits.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. They were like a lot of benefits that you told us about blended learning approach. Moving forward, ma'am, you were just mentioning that you were using this approach, during the pandemic. So, what are some of the challenges you must have, faced as an educator while using this approach, ma'am?
Plenty of challenges. The most, I think the most common, which most of the schools and colleges had faced, was the technology. Technology is actually expensive. Why? Because they need a tool. For the entire process, they need a tool. Now, in a family, suppose there are three brothers and sisters. Okay, there are two parents, so they have one phone each. So what about the third child? Right? They need to buy immediately a phone or a laptop or something for the child, so the child gets access to this blended learning, right? So technology is not so easy. It is expensive, and every parent should be able to afford. So this was a very common problem which we faced, because some of the parents, so we had to distribute the timings, like grade 3rd to 5th were studying at one time, then 6th to 8th they were getting their classrooms during a different time frame, and then 9th to 12th getting it over a different time frame. Why? Because there were brothers and sisters in different at different levels. Okay, so it is a very, very, the biggest challenge was this, that we faced, technology, which is actually very expensive. Okay, and another thing was that at that point of time, right now things are a little different, because we have moved quite ahead of time, now. So now we've learned how to manage these classes. But when it suddenly started with a jolt, all of a sudden overnight, teachers were not trained at all. Okay, so training was another very, very big challenge which we faced, and we had to train them overnight, like first train ourselves and then train them. So that was a big job. So it was literally day in and day out, like day and night process it was, with some of them suffering from COVID, etc. Now, of course, things are a little better, because they've learned to explore many other platforms from where they can get good material which can help them to teach, etc. Okay, then of course maintaining the record of the students progress was initially a little bit tough, but later on, people reached out to us. For example, in tab reached out to us a lot, which made it very easy for us to take the examinations and maintain the record. It was very, very easy for us. Okay, now one more challenge was attendance. It's very easy to just run away from these classes, because they will just not come to the classes. They will stay away, they won't wake up, they keep sleeping. Kids are kids, so these problems we did face at that point of time. So initially, then we had to counsel the parents, we had to counsel the brothers and sisters, then we had to counsel these children. Teachers had to reach out to each and every person at that point of time, unless these children understood the importance of these online and blended mode of teaching learning process. And then they slowly started coming in and attending these classes, etc. Okay, now every child may not be digitally smart, not important, because in school we are teaching them everything pertaining to the syllabus. Okay, whatever form, whatever is there, we are teaching, even in the computer classes. But at home, every parent is not the same. So some of the parents, they restrict their children from a computer or a laptop or a phone or something. They restrict too much of restrictions on some. We have faced these issues, so I can tell you easily about these things, that when parents are very, very restrictive about these the technology or whatever, then what happens, these children, they fall behind the other children as far as digitally smart. Okay, so they are not so digitally smart. So it is a small, very, very small percentage in today's era. It's not a very common problem, yet that small percentage of parents, we had to convince them and make them understand that the children need this exposure, otherwise they will not learn. So that's a very, and of course the authenticity of the teacher, how good is a teacher, and how well is the teacher able to reach out to the child and explain to the child, how knowledgeable is the teacher as far as blended learning is concerned. So all these problems we did face, and it was a challenge, but then we, one by one, we did overcome them. One day at a time we would take, and eventually, say at the end of 15-20 days, we were pretty well versed.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Lastly, what are some of the factors that you would suggest to keep in mind while using this approach?
I think the factors, or rather the measures, for the performance, most importantly, is the measures to measure the performance of the child who is actually attending these blended learning. It is just not the different factors. Factors mostly I've covered in whatever I've told you. These are the, basically, by means of the different questions that you've asked, most
Yeah.
of the factors have been covered. But what I feel is the most important thing and the most important factor is to see how successful is this form of this platform of blended learning. Okay, and to see that, we need to measure the performance of this approach. How well is a child able to understand through this, which needs to be measured, so when we measure that, there are different methodologies. Of course, homework is there, quiz is there, reports are there, essays are there, research is there, research projects are there, case studies are there. So these different things for different topics are distributed amongst the children. And of course, the rubrics, very very importantly, is what are the different kinds of rubrics which we are using for these different methodologies which we are using to measure the performance, with the help of the blended learning. And for both, it's not just about oral or written, but for both oral and written, how well are these children able to perform using these different platforms. So if this could be measured, I'm sure the most important factor of the learning outcome, we are teaching them something, but what is the learning outcome, how successful are we, that could be measured only when we could measure the performance of this approach. I think that's the most important factor that we cover under this. Yes.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a wonderful session with you. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, viewpoints, and experiences with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot to NTAB also for giving this opportunity to me. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And for all the viewers watching us out, do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more stuff like this. Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you very much.